Hi, I'm Corey Ball.
And I'm Dan Searle. We're back off the beaten path. And this podcast is for basketball coaches who are living in obscurity, working in obscurity, even those who have found some true culture and made it out of obscurity.
It's a place for storytelling. Some of the stories are true, learning, connecting, reconnecting, food for thought, and my favorite part, food for the belly. And today we have a true off the beaten path guest here, Bobby Champagne, who has been all over JUCO to D2 to D1 to assistant head coaches, 18 states, a bunch of zip codes, area codes, and everything else. And we're glad to have you, Bob.
Man, I appreciate you guys having me on. If there's such a thing as binge watching, I've started binge watching Off the Beaten Path podcast the last few weeks, or just to catch up on everybody.
How about that? You gotta love it that you got your number one fan now as a guest on the show. So we're looking forward to hearing your stories. But circle back and bring us through to some of those guests we've had, because this has been a blast talking to coaches who have been, we say it every time, right, Corey? Truly off the beaten path, but every guest has been and often still is off the beaten path. So let's hear it.
Well, your guy from the Phoenix Suns, names leave me, so name dropping is going to be hard for me, but assistant at the Phoenix Suns, enjoyed watching his second podcast because I had the opportunity. Phoenix came and practiced in our facility, and just listening to him talking about their guys and seeing it firsthand, real deal. All of them walk in, hey, coach, appreciate you letting us use your facility. When they walked out, shook hands, thank you very much. Coach Monty Williams wet mopped the floor himself. Booker, my man, Georgia JUCO guy. Crowder and JaVale McGee are in our weight room getting a massage, and all of them just carrying on a conversation with me, just like they're regular guys, man. And I'm kind of like, hey, man, this is CP3 and Booker, kind of. But just enjoyed hearing how they are and being able to see it. So that, and then Stan Jones, I've known Stan for a long time, watching him and seeing how he went from, some of that stuff I didn't know about him being I knew he was a high school coach, but I didn't realize he was a high school coach at such a small high school. And then, Andre Gray, he's a little different than me. He's made a bunch of stops in one state. I tried to cover there's 3 states I haven't been to, and that's North Dakota, South Dakota, and Maine. So at some point in time, I've got to schedule a game there or take a vacation to one of those spots.
Yeah, quality basketball teams in all 3 of those states.
Yeah. I was planning on being at the Elite 8 when I was in South Dakota one year, but team didn't quite get there. So
how about that? Well, listen, what you're doing is you're validating the stories on Off the Beaten Path. Kevin Young, assistant with the Suns, that was during their playoff run the first time when he was telling those stories, and you saw it firsthand. Love it. This is great already.
Yeah, some of the stories are true.
Wait, I've heard that somewhere.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, let's start with you, Bobby. Some of the guests you didn't mention are some of the ones that were your rivals, former guys you beat. We won't say they ever beat you, even if they did or didn't. We won't bring those up. But some of those D2 guys you battled with in your D2 days. But let's go through your whole stretch here. Let's start it off. What got you into basketball? When did it start for you?
I grew up watching the Southwestern Louisiana Raging Cajuns. Never missed a game in Blackham Coliseum. Andrew Toney is my all-time favorite player. And so I watched every home game in Blackham Coliseum, went to Bobby Pascal's basketball camp, and just kind of grew up watching them, played Little League baseball and other stuff, but football a little bit. But basketball was what drove me, and I enjoyed going to camps and doing that. And then I was lucky. Ricky Broussard was my high school coach. Coached at Nicholls State, went to the NCAA tournament twice. The only coach to do that at Nicholls was at LSU. So I had him for a couple of years, and then Danny Broussard took over, and Danny's still coaching at St. Thomas More. I think he's the winningest coach in the nation, number of wins maybe. So I had those guys. Went to Dixie basketball camp that Joe Dean ran. So it was around Joe Dean's senior and junior. Kermit Davis was the coach at Southwest Mississippi Junior College at the time. John Brady was a high school coach at Macomb, and then was a high school coach in Louisiana. Richard Williams was a coach at Copiah Lincoln. So I've dropped a whole bunch of names there for you.
I like it.
Just trying to get out of high school. But yeah, that's where it started. Just being around good coaches, being around good guys and going to camp and learning basketball, and then working camps at an early age.
Bobby, so what's the feel? What's the buzz? And we're jumping deep into this early in the conversation, but what does John Brady and Richard Williams and Joe Dean and all these names you just mentioned? Is there something in common? Is there a conversation? Is it a drill when they coach you up? Is it just their passion? What'd you get from that drove you down this path?
Yeah, all of the above. I was kind of that kid that got to ride in the back seat and listen to the conversations, or as they were sitting at the coffee table drawn on a napkin, I was just standing off to the side watching and checking it out. And was able to, at a young age, get thrown into the conversation with them. So that was it. But the passion that Joe Dean, senior and junior, had running their camp, the enthusiasm, are you fired up? That kind of stuff I really got into, and that it probably had something to do with some of my antics on the court, just being the aggressive, intense guy. But yeah, that was the early start, and then I was lucky. I got to coach an AAU team. Scotty Thurman was on that team. Gerald Honeycutt, Byron Starks, and Eric Hayward. Those guys all played UConn. Honeycutt was the one guy who got drafted. He was a lottery pick, but I had some really good guys on the AAU team, and that kind of got me going a little bit, where I was able to call some timeouts at 21 years old.
Now, when you were coaching that AAU team, did you play college? Were you done playing? Did you just go to college? How'd it go?
Played. I went to Jeff Davis Junior College. Ever heard of it?
Yeah. Now it's Coastal South, I guess.
And doesn't even have a basketball team anymore. So that, I think they dropped the basketball deal. So I went there for a couple of years and played, and then was all set. I had a huge offer from St. Mary's of the Plains in Dodge City, Kansas, to go and play, or Ronnie Arrow had offered me a student assistant job at South Alabama. He had just gotten a South Alabama job. So I was like, man, I can go out to Dodge City, Kansas, and do what I've been doing for 2 years in obscurity, or I can get started doing something that I really want to do. So I decided to go to South Alabama. Well, about 2 weeks before school starts, Coach Arrow calls me and says, hey, Bobby, how would you like to be on the team? I was like, yeah, that'd be great, man. So I was that 15th guy, used to have 15 scholarships. So I was the 15th guy on the team. We only had 2 weeks to get in shape, and I had been having a pretty good summer. So it was a little rough those first weeks of conditioning.
A pretty fun summer, yes.
Yeah. So that kind of started it off there, getting to South Alabama and being a player, being a student assistant, being a graduate assistant, and all of those along those ways. Like when I was a player, coach would have me be in the gym with the guards when the coaches couldn't be there, and kind of run the drills or at least get the guys organized. And then when I was a student assistant manager, they let me break down some tape, do some of the work that maybe the graduate assistant did. And then when I was a graduate assistant, I got to do some of the stuff that the third assistant did. So that all kind of got me started. You know, I was a pre-med major. I was going to be a doctor, and all of the labs, biology labs, were at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so Coach Arrow said, Bobby, we can't have that. You can't miss practice every day. We practice at 3 o'clock. I said, well, Coach, what do you want me to do, man? I'm majoring in pre-med. South Alabama's got a great medical school. He said, you need to change your major. So I went to see the academic advisor, Miss Kroll, rest her soul. And I said, Miss Kroll, just give me something that does not have a lot of math. And so I became a sociology major.
And doesn't have class at 3 o'clock every day. And
never had class at 3 o'clock. I was, the sociology is the in-depth study of the obvious. And so I had two math classes. I had a statistics class, and I had a math class that basically showed you how to balance your checkbook, which I struggled in both, but got out of it. So
got through.
How long were you at South Alabama total, playing, assisting, managing, GA?
4 years. 4 years. Yeah, so I did 1 year as a GA and was Jeff Hodge and Junie Lewis, peanut butter and jelly, were the guards. And we beat Alabama in the Omni. How about that, Corey? The Omni. Yeah, we beat Alabama in the Omni, the only South Alabama team to win a game in the NCAA tournament. Jeff Hodge hit a shot with about 5 seconds to go. We were down 15 at half, and that was our first lead with 5 seconds to go. And then Robert Ory, Big Bob, Robert Ory, missed a contested shot on the other end. Keith Haskins was on that team. So that was a lot of fun. So I was planning on going back to my next year to be a GA, and I was moving my sister up to Michigan during Labor Day. I got a call from Jeff Price, who was an assistant on our staff, and he had worked at the University of Washington for Andy Russo, and he said, hey, you might want to call up to Washington State. They got a guy that just left. Mark Adams had just left Washington State to go take a job, and it was August. I mean, you know, it's Labor Day. We hadn't started school yet because we were on a quarter system. And Don Newman was the assistant who had been recruiting some of my guys on the AAU team. And so I called Donnie. He's a New Orleans guy. And I said, hey, man, I heard you guys had a spot open. He goes, would you be interested? I said, yeah. He said, well, let me check with Coach, and I'll give you a call. And a couple of days later, Coach Sampson called me. And about 5 days later, I'm sitting in this is true now, it doesn't sound true, but I'm sitting in Orange Beach, Alabama, Gulf Shores, at the payphone, the Pink Pony Pub. And I called Coach Sampson on a credit card. You know, you used to have to dial 100 numbers. You didn't have a cell phone. And I'm talking to Coach Sampson on the phone, and he offered me the job. And I was like, hey, how soon can you get here? I said, well, Coach, I gotta go talk to Coach Arrow. He's been good to me. You got to tell him, you know, I'm going from being a GA to a third assistant in the Pac-8, you know, unpack my apartment, go back to Louisiana, pack up and drive. I'll be there in a couple of days. Is how I put it. I had no idea how far Pullman, Washington was from anything on this earth. It is way out there. So took off and started my gig.
We got to recap about 4 things here. First, another Omni reference.
Mm-hmm.
We love the Omni. We've missed the Omni, as pretty as State Farm is these days. Robert Ory missed a game-winning jumper, and you were there. Is that did that start him on that path of game-winning jumpers in the NBA? What was he like at the college days?
He was really good. I was fortunate enough to work Wimp Sanderson's camp. Robert Ory, Jason Caffey, Antonio Lang, all of those good. Kevin Gray and Polinsky were assistants for Coach and Dave Hobbs, and they ran a great camp. But they did a great job of getting the best players from Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia to come to camp. And they were up on that 3rd floor or 4th floor, Tutwiler. And they had some great games after camp was over. But yeah, all those guys were there. And Ory was Horry was a really good player in college. Long, could score. They had some good teams at Alabama then, but it was always the next year when I went to work Alabama's camp. I wasn't as well received as I was in the previous 3 years because you know.
After that, I'm sure.
Got to get the outdoor court to work on.
I was on the outdoor court, and I went from $250 a week to $200.
Exactly.
I had dorm duty every night.
Mm-hmm. And then the last thing I wanted to highlight, let's just re-emphasize the phone call from a payphone with a credit card from the Pink Pony Pub in Orange Beach before you go to Pullman. So
Yeah.
I love this already. Let's keep them rolling. What kind of car did you drive to Pullman?
I've got
What
a
kind of
quick
car?
question.
Yeah.
How many miles do you know South Alabama is? Do you know by chance?
I don't have any idea. I was in a Mazda RX-6 maybe. Little red car. I packed everything I had, man. Everything I owned fit in the back seat in the trunk. My mom was a little bit worried about her 23-year-old heading across the country, so she had my dad come with me, and we drove straight through, just alternating. I got to Billings, Montana, and got on a payphone and called Coach Sampson. It was like 11 o'clock at night. Well, I don't know how late it was, but it was night. And I'm talking to Coach, and I said, he asked me where I was. I said, Billings, Montana. He goes, oh man, that's great. You're almost here. And I hear his wife in the background say, Kelvin, he's not almost here. Tell him to get a hotel room and spend the night somewhere. But he was right. It was about 11 more hours from Billings to Pullman. When you get out west, man, it's a long drive. You know, I just drove in from Lafayette on I-10. And when you get there, there's a sign that says El Paso, 857 miles. Man, Texas is a big state. Montana's a big state. It's wide open.
How about that?
I'm going to check though, Corey, to see how many miles it is, because that would be interesting.
I just pulled it up. It's 2,220 miles.
Wow. Yeah. So I think about this now. I'm on the beach in Gulf Shores, and when I got there, school had already started, and that weekend there was a football game. And I go from being on the beach in Gulf Shores, it's 90 degrees, to having to wear a sweater to the football game. First day of practice, basketball practice, it snowed, and I can't drive in the snow, man. I put my car in the ditch first day, and it was just a dusting. Everybody was laughing at me, but it was a lot of fun. Another story with Coach Sampson. So he hires me. I had never met him. I knew Donnie Newman on his staff. I didn't know Jason Rabdu. I'd never met Coach Sampson. I talked to him on the phone 3 or 4 times. I actually faxed him my resume. Nobody faxes anything anymore. I had a fax machine in my house because my dad had his own business, but Coach didn't really he didn't care about a resume. He was like, I don't care about a resume. Anybody can make the resume look good. I need to know somebody that knows you, that I know. And man, I started panicking, like, who am I gonna know out? And then it clicked. Kermit Davis was a coach at Idaho. So I said, oh, well, Kermit Davis. He goes, you're gonna have to come up with somebody else. I'm on the phone sweating, man. And my mind's racing, and I immediately went to Tim Floyd, because he was a coach at Idaho too. And Coach Sampson goes, you just went south, man. That was worse than Kermit Davis. I'm going, I'm not getting this job. Come to find out, both those guys are really good friends with Coach. He was just busting my job.
Messing with you, okay.
Yeah, so it worked out great. So 3 years at Washington State, and then
I was about to ask for the story. Why does he not like Kermit Davis and Tim Floyd?
No, he gets along.
Got along.
Yeah, he gets along great with those guys. The Washington State and University of Idaho, or Idaho University, is only 8 miles apart.
Across the state line there. How about it?
Just right there. And I had made a statement a year earlier. Somebody had given me a list of coaches to write to, and I had made a statement. I'm never living in Moscow, Idaho. So I'm not even going to write Kermit Davis a letter. And there I am a year later, moving to Pullman, and didn't even know Pullman was right next to Moscow. So.
And neither did I. So I still got those Google Maps pulled up on the other screen and just looked at it. So listeners, it's, if you care about geography at all, go look. It's kind of neat.
And you talk about off the beaten path. There is no path. George Raveling once said, Pullman, Washington is not the end of the earth, but you can see it from there. And he's correct. He is correct.
Well, I've got a couple of questions here real quick. One, how much difference was it, just the day-to-day life from South Alabama to the northwest United States? And then the second one is the Pac-8. You know, of course, it's about to become the Pac-8 again with all teams running away, but it's up to the Pac-12. You know, now back then it was the Pac-8. Tell us a little bit about the teams in it and the different lifestyle there. Two questions.
Yeah, the lifestyle, I'm 23 years old, and the only thing in Pullman, Washington are wheat farmers, professors, and college students. So there wasn't a whole lot to do. I could give you about 2 places to eat there. Cella's had some calzones, and there was the Coug that I had to go to when the students weren't there, because it basically just a place to go get some pints. But no, lifestyle was totally different, but it was good. I mean, I'm 23 years old and a third assistant, and back then that was the restricted earnings coach. But it was great. The league was awesome. Lute Olson was at Arizona. Bill Frieder was at Arizona State. Mike Montgomery at Stanford. Herrick was at UCLA. It was really good. The league was great. The travel was good too. I mean, we leave Pullman, Washington, which had like 12 feet of snow, and we get to go to Arizona for Thursday, Saturday game in the desert, or we got to go to the Bay Area for Cal, Stanford, or we got to go to LA for UCLA, USC. So that was good. The only trip in the league that was similar to us was when we go to Oregon State to play, and then we'd fly across by Mount Rainier to go play UW. But the league was awesome, man. Some really, really, really good players. Jason Kidd, best player I have ever watched live coaching against. Controlled the game on both ends without him having to make a basket. Unbelievable.
Okay, yeah. So we're talking your years there, if you'll give that to us.
What was that, 90? Let's see, I was at South Alabama 87 to 90, so 91 to 94, or 91 to 90 to 93 at Washington State. Yeah. Good players in the league. Don McClain, Damon Stoudemire,
right.
Khalid Reeves, Ed Stokes, Tracy Murray, and there were some dudes on every team. One year I was Headache Smith at Arizona State. One year I was lucky enough, coach let me have every scout.
Lucky guy.
20, every scout, 22 of them. Yeah. So on Thursday night, we were playing Oregon State, and on Saturday night, we got Oregon. And on Friday, I got to flip the switch and do, it got a little crazy as the season wore on, but it worked out. It gave the other guys the opportunity to do some recruiting, and I was able to learn a lot, by doing scouting reports, man. You really pick up on things that other coaches do, and what you like, what you don't like, some different actions and those things. But man, when you got Michigan State scout, well, so I had one weekend, this was in the preseason, I had Princeton. We played Princeton in the Michigan State tournament, and we were going to play Michigan State in the finals, right? So I had to do all the Princeton offense, and then back then Judd Heathcote had all his plays on ping pong paddles, and Brian Gregory used to have to call those plays. And he had about 50 ping pong paddles. So there was one on each side. He just flipped them. 50 plays, man. And coach wanted all of them. So it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So where did Washington State take you to next?
Coach Sampson got the Oklahoma job. Billy Tubbs left Oklahoma, went to TCU, and we had pretty good run, NCAA tournament, NIT tournament in those 3 years with some really good players. Mark Hendrickson was all-time leading rebounder. Isaac Fontaine, all-time leading scorer at Washington State. So we had some good dudes there. Benny Seltzer's in the Pac-12 or Pac Hall of Fame. Those were all guys we had. But yeah, so coach took the Oklahoma job, and so I was fortunate enough that he took me along with him. Got a little nervous because he went for the interview, and then when he was going to get offered the job, he had his wife and kids and Ray Lopes and Jason Rabideau, the other two assistants, fly back to Norman for the press conference. And I got nervous, like, whew, how come I didn't get invited to the press conference? But the deal was those guys were recruiting, so he wanted them in Norman, hitting the road recruiting. And I was fortunate enough when they flew back, I went to the airport to pick them up. So I was taken along for the ride. But it was a tough 48, 72 hours figuring out, hey man, I'm gonna get stuck out here in Pullman, Washington. Because Kevin Eastman was the next coach that followed coach, but there's no telling if he would have kept me or not. But I was lucky enough to get to go with coach to Oklahoma.
That's the life of a coach, though. Assistant coaches, as the tables turn, do I get to go? Do I have to find a new spot? How do you calm your mind, or do you when you're in that situation there, where like everybody's at the press conference except you? What are you telling yourself?
You're just hoping for the best. You're hoping for the best, you know, it's just like in a game, man. Play goes bad, you move on to the next one. The play goes good, you move on to the next one. You get ready for the next thing that's going to happen, and you know. Lucky Coach Sampson's tremendously loyal guy, and all of his staff is tremendously loyal to him. So that's why I'm here at the University of Houston now. You know, everybody on his staff now. Killen's his son. Quantas and Hollis played for him at Oklahoma. They're getting ready to go back, get honored for the Final Four team in 2003. Cole Rabideau is his graduate assistant. His dad Jason was his assistant. So. You know, just lucky, and you got to be ready to move. And luckily for me, you know, I was single, wasn't married at the time, no kids. I mean, basically, I just threw everything in the back of my car and took off. You know, fun trip from Pullman to Norman. I went to Yellowstone Park for the day and drove around and checked it out, did a little sightseeing. So, yeah.
You got to do that. You got to fit that in.
Oh yeah. So that's how I've gotten all but three states. I just kind of take some road trips and check out some things and see if I can find a good barbecue joint or a slice of pizza along the way.
That's the way to go, right there. I love it. So now you go from you know, the Pac-8, the Conference of Champions, to another basketball haven.
It was the Big 8. It was the Big 8 at the time. It wasn't the Big 12. It's about to be the Big 16 or 18. Yeah, so it was Missouri and Kansas and Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, some really, you know, really good basketball. Roy Williams was at Kansas, Paul Pierce, Rafe LaFrance, Jacques Vaughn. Those dudes were really good. Eddie Sutton was at Oklahoma State with Big Country. Corey Williams.
Gottlieb.
He didn't guard Gottlieb. We didn't guard Gottlieb. We sat back below the free throw line. He couldn't shoot. You know, we kind of did the same thing with Jacques Vaughn, but Jacques Vaughn was, he would drive it right at you and force you to do something. And he'd make a couple shots. Lawrence Fieldhouse, one of the toughest places to play. The old Harmon Gym, Cal's old place was a tough place to play too. But yeah, that was a great league. Norm Stewart was at Missouri. We used to have some bloodbaths. He had some guys, but hey, I got a trivia question for you guys. Y'all are baseball guys. I know y'all are Braves fans. You know who Cal Ripken is.
Yeah.
What's Cal Ripken known for?
Never missing a game, right?
Right. He took a day off one day. Who took his place?
Was it Ryan Miner?
There you go. Ryan Miner. Got to coach Ryan Miner at Oklahoma. He was a basketball guy.
He was one of my favorite players. Me and my dad, anytime they were on TV, we would watch. We were huge Ryan Miner guys.
When he was playing basketball or playing with the Orioles?
Basketball.
Yeah.
We were always ACC guys, so that was rare that we would watch Kansas a lot. So we got started watching the Big Eight and became more of a Ryan Miner fan.
Yeah, he and his twin brother Damon, really, really talented guys. So we were lucky. Ryan was a holdover with Tubbs, and coach ran everything through him. And then we got Nate Erdman and a couple other guys the next year to win. 3 years there with him. We went to the NCAA tournament 3 straight years. So
Bobby's expecting blank stares back at him on the screen with that trivia question. And Corey's like, yeah, Ryan Miner. I had no idea.
You're the first guy I've ever asked that question that knows the answer to it. So that's pretty good. Yeah. That's pretty good. So yeah, I spent 3 years at Oklahoma. So 6 years total with Coach, Washington State and Oklahoma. And then being so small.
Hold 1 sec, Bobby, before you go to the next spot. Kind of interesting that Coach was a D2 guy who was only known as a D1 coach. You've done all this D1 assistant work and played D1, and most guys know you as a D2 head coach. Kind of funny that it goes,
Yeah, Coach got his start. He played at Pembroke. UNC Pembroke was a basketball, baseball guy, and then he was a graduate assistant for Judd Heathcote when Magic Johnson was there. So and then he took the job. He took the job at Montana Tech in Billings and was there. I don't know how many years, but before he got the assistant's job at Washington State, and was only assistant maybe for a couple of years before he got the head job. So yeah, he started out small college guy in obscurity, driving the bus to crazy places in the NAIA, because that league, you talk about some road trips, 11, 12 hours in the snow. It's not like driving from Pullman to Valdosta where it's all interstate and the only thing you got to worry about is maybe hitting a traffic jam in Atlanta or a cow crossing the road in Waycross. Yeah.
We love the cow.
What's that?
We love the cow crossings.
Yeah. They had a cow. They had a couple cows get loose in Florence recently, and it basically shut downtown down. So it was crazy. Yeah.
So where'd you go from Oklahoma?
I went back home. I went back to Lafayette, Louisiana. Jesse Evans had gotten the USL job, Southwestern Louisiana job. Arizona just won the national championship, and he got the job. And I spent 6 years with Coach as a restricted earnings coach, and we couldn't recruit, we couldn't do any of that stuff. And if I was going to be a head coach or move up, I knew I needed to get some recruiting experience. And in my mind, what a better place to do it than back home where I had some roots and I had some, had grown up watching the Raging Cajuns play. So was lucky, got hired, and spent 3 or 4 years down there with the Cajuns, and we ended up winning the league one year and had Tennessee on the ropes when Jerry Green was the coach at Tennessee with Vincent Yarbrough and some other dudes. We were up 7 or 8 late, and not mentioning any names, but a couple Pac-12 officials kind of stuck it to us with about 3 minutes to go, and Tennessee ended up pulling out the win. They were good. We were talented too, but we didn't close out the game. We could have made some free throws, but yeah, it was a good run there. Good run being back home. I got married, had a kid, you know, and then the things start getting really complicated. You talk about moving, you know, I get offered the job at Lafayette, and I got to ask somebody, you know, is it okay? And my wife did not want to leave Norman, Oklahoma. She loved it there. It was a great place to live, still is, I'm sure. It was a great job, and she didn't want to leave coach, and you know, it was just a good deal. And she also probably didn't want to move to my hometown and have to be right next to the in-laws.
As great as they are.
Yeah. And so, you know, we go down there 3-4 years. We have our first son, and let's see, Charlie was born in September, and in May I took the job at Georgia State with Coach Driesell. So it was quick. And again, I had to ask my wife, hey, is it okay? And she was fine. She's from, her mom and dad lived in Auburn, so it was only 90 miles away, and it was good. And she was happy to be moving to Georgia. And, you know, didn't really know, she's not a basketball junkie or anything, but Lefty Driesell sounded like a fun guy to be around. So she was happy to be moving. Yeah,
that's for sure. Tell us some Lefty stories. And,
oh man,
both on the fun side and on the intense side, no doubt.
You know, Coach he was 70, 72, 73. And I would just always think to myself, how in the world could I work for this guy when he was 30 years old? Because all of the energy and intensity and attention to detail in recruiting that he had at 72, it must have been unbelievable when he was doing it at Davidson and Maryland. You know, it was always fun to go out on the road and people would see your Georgia State shirt. And it was a guy who had worked for Coach at James Madison or Maryland, and he'd come over and sit by you. Hey, man, can you tell me if Coach is still doing this? Is Coach still doing this? And it would undoubtedly be something about a staff meeting where he would just go off, or he would get upset about something, or, hey, do you guys still break down recruiting? Like, what states do you have? And each assistant had states, and I mean, we covered every state. I don't think we messed with Hawaii. We didn't recruit Hawaii, but every other state, somebody was in charge of knowing who the best player in that state was, and we needed to be able to be in contact with him. And Coach Driesell did not care who the kid was. Shavlik Randolph, he was top 5 in the country. We had to call him, and we had to get Coach on the phone with him. And Coach knew somebody who knew somebody who was attached to Shavlik Randolph, and every kid wanted to come to Atlanta. So we needed to recruit him, you know, and we always had to have 2 lists. One list for Coach, you know, the top 25 kids in the country, and then those kids that we were going to be able to sign at Georgia State to win the Atlantic Sun. And it was good being around Mike Perry, because Mike understood how Coach was, because he'd been with him so long, and now some great stories with Coach, man. I probably shouldn't have left. Again, you know, I leave Coach Sampson. I probably shouldn't have left that job. Working for Coach, I probably shouldn't have left Coach, just because it was so much. It was intense and it was a grind, but it was fun, and just enjoyed being around him and learning from him, just how to recruit, how to get the ball in your best player's hands at the right time, you know, and he was really, really good at that.
No doubt. And so Norman, Pullman before that, Lafayette after, and now you're downtown Atlanta.
Yeah.
How does that transition go for you? You may not be living there, but you're working there, and that's where you're recruiting.
Yeah. So this was kind of the first time I moved to Atlanta. my wife and my oldest son stayed in Auburn. So I had a good friend, Anil Vaswani, there in Atlanta, and he lived in Midtown, Morningside Drive. I can remember the address. And so he let me stay in his basement. So I stayed there for about 3-4 months before we found a house out in Sminings, Smyrna. But we said Sminings because Vinings was the nice area and Smyrna was not so nice back then. But yeah, it was like 13 miles from my house to the office, which meant 45 minutes or an hour and a half drive, depending on what time of day it was. Yeah. So I'd get up at 5 or 6 and get to the office before the traffic, and come home at 7 or 7:30 after the traffic. So my first son was born in Lafayette. My second son was born at Piedmont Hospital 13-14 months later. I didn't see them the whole year I was in Atlanta. Basically in the morning I'd go in there and watch them sleep, and when I got home I'd come home and watch them sleep. So it was a little rough, but it's part of it, you know. But I loved Atlanta. Loved being in Atlanta. You know, Georgia State was Coach Driesell made Georgia State a really, really good basketball job.
Put them on the map, big time.
Yeah. I wasn't on that squad that you know, won a game in the NCAA tournament. I was on the team that won 22 games, and Florida Atlantic hit a half-court shot to beat us in the championship. So we ended up going to the NIT. But we had some really good players, Thomas Terrell and Lamont McIntosh. Again, my brain doesn't work on names sometimes, but we were good, and it was a lot of fun going into games with those guys because coach was really good at putting them in great spots. Probably the one story, Belmont's in the league at the time, and they had a guy named Adam Son who was really, really good inside guy, and I had to scout. And so I had convinced coach that we were gonna play behind in the post, let Adam Son catch it, don't double team him, and we weren't gonna let them throw it back out to shoot threes. There was no way they could make enough 2-pointers to beat us. But if we double team, they hit threes. And Adam Son has like 21 points in the first half. We're up 5, but Son is killing us, and they've only got like 2 3-pointers. Coach went off in the locker room. I can't believe you talked me into doing that. Mike, how'd you let Bobby talk me into doing it? And so we went back to doing it, 3-quarter in, double team and whatever. And I think Daryl Cooper or Lamont McIntosh had to hit a basket at the buzzer to beat them, because they started draining threes in the second half like you wouldn't believe it. But
you didn't say I told you so.
Oh, no. I learned that lesson. We played Mississippi State in Phillips Arena, because I think the Final Four was there that year. And so they had to play a game, and we played Mississippi State, or maybe we played Georgia. I can't remember. We played Georgia that year too. But Mario Austin was on Mississippi State's team. We played them close, but they beat us. And I had made a mistake of saying something about, man, we're just as talented as Mississippi State. And that didn't go over real well in the staff meeting. I had to go down every player on Mississippi State's roster and compare him to one of our guys. You telling me you would take Thomas Terrell over Mario Austin? You're crazy.
You got one of the best Coach Driesell voices, though, that's for sure.
Hey, he was mad. He was hot. And I was like, Coach, sorry, won't happen again. Yeah.
I love it. So where did you go after Georgia State?
So Georgia State, I went to UTEP. And that was another one of those jobs that my wife was kicking and screaming, telling me not to go. But Jason Rabideau was a good friend of mine. We'd worked together at Washington State in Oklahoma, and he got the UTEP job when Coach Haskins retired. And he didn't, it was maybe my second year or third year at Louisiana-Lafayette when he got it. And he didn't hire me right away. didn't worry about it. But, you know, I went to Georgia State, and then middle of July, well, the start of July, Sylvie Dominguez was working at UTEP and taking a job at Utah. And so I go on the road July 8th or whatever it was, and went up to Indianapolis for the Nike camp. And while I'm there, Rabideau is talking to me about coming to work for him at UTEP. And we had a break. We'd go 2 weeks or 10 days, and then we take a few days off, and then we'd go again. And so the first half of recruiting, I had Georgia State on. The second half of the recruiting, I got UTEP on. And you know, I'm in Indianapolis the first half, and I'm out in Vegas the second half, and I see guys looking at me like, what are you doing? Why do you have that shirt on? And a couple coaches were like, why did you leave Georgia State? UTEP's a job you're going to get fired at. You're going to win with Coach Driesell. That's stupid, Bobby. Why'd you take that job? You know, you do what you think is best. And it all worked out. But the crazy thing is, my son Charlie has now, he's 2 years old, and he's lived in 3 states. You know, my son Will is 1 year old, and he's lived in 2 states. And then when we moved to North Alabama, 3 years old, 4 states, and 2 years old, 3 states. So it was crazy because there's only 1 year at Georgia State, 1 year at UTEP, and then to North Alabama. I think I made 11 payments on my house in Atlanta. I made 7 payments on my house in El Paso. So the realtor in El Paso didn't even have to redig a hole for the sign. He just put the sign right back in there. It was crazy.
How was El Paso living?
I liked it. It was a great job. Fans support you. They are basketball people. You know, literally I-10 is right south of campus. So you're driving on I-10 going to campus. Campus is on your left. Mexico's on your right. I mean, you're looking at the Rio Grande. I mean, you can see it. And then what is it? Sun Valley Stadium, or whatever, football stadium's up on the hill, campus up on the hill. And so you can look out in the valley in the Juarez at night. It's a pretty view. But I enjoyed living out there, and it was a good basketball job. You know, we weren't very good. I went to work for Jason and Rabideau, and about a week into practice, about a week to go before our exhibition game, he resigned. Had some stuff going on, and just felt like it was the right thing for him to do. So he resigns, and then the day before our exhibition game, or the day of our exhibition game, they hired Billy Gillespie as the head coach. So yeah. Want some stories?
That'll top Lefty right there.
Yeah, totally different spectrums now. Like when you talk about working for some guys, characters with character, Billy was a different dude, and you know, we weren't very good, which didn't make it. We won 6 or 7 games, which made it really tough. But the fans loved us. I mean, I think we got beat at home by Louisiana Tech, who used to be in the WAC. Forbes was an assistant at Tech at the time. We got beat at home by 20. And when we came off the floor, the place was packed, and they gave us a standing ovation because our guys played hard. I mean, they played hard. They just weren't very good. So that for that part, it was a really good job from the fan perspective and how much they supported it. You know, I mean, I'm an assistant coach making more money than I'd ever made as an assistant. I've got a courtesy car, a gas card, and nobody ever sent a cell phone, and nobody ever asked, you know, when we said, hey, we're going recruiting, that was the first time I'd been someplace recruiting that, you know, budget was a problem, but they didn't, when it was relating to recruiting, they let you go and do what you needed to do to get the players. So that part of it I liked.
How about
being around Coach Haskins was also good. You know, he'd come to practice. He'd show up in his pickup truck. He had an uncanny deal where he knew when practice was over and knew when you'd be walking out of the gym, and you'd be walking up the ramp out of the gym, and he'd drive his pickup truck, and roll down the window. Hey, Bob, you want to go for a ride? And I'd hop in his pickup truck and we'd go ride around the desert or go up the top of the hill and just talk basketball and ask how the team's doing. And just really good to be around. You talk about, being around Lefty Driesell, a Hall of Famer, Don Haskins, a Hall of Famer. And I'm working for a Hall of Famer. They just hadn't put him in there yet. So I've been really lucky.
Talk about that Haskins connection again, too. Just as you described that, hey, want to go for a ride? Let's talk hoops. Let's go see the plains and the hills and the mountains and talk basketball. Give us a little bit more there. What'd you learn from him? What was one of those moments or stories?
Totally old school. He'd call the office in between Jason resigning and Billy getting hired. He called the office in the morning. It was like Ryan Carr was assistant, Junzi Cotton was assistant, and myself, and we'd go meet him. There was a Mexican cantina in the lobby of some old hotel downtown that he'd sit in, and we had to go down there, and he'd say, "Hey, bring a notepad and a pencil," and so bring a big yellow legal notepad, and he would be drawing up drills for us to do at practice that day.
Wow.
And Corey, you'd love this now. Shell drill. You put your guys free throw lane extended in the corner, and not coach wanted him to get everybody in the corners, get as far as you can. And he said, do that for about 2 hours and make them sprint to help. He said, after 2 hours, whoever hadn't quit, that's the guy you play. I mean, you're talking about running, the guy standing in the corner, half court in the corner, you're talking about having to cover some ground. He said, do it for 2 hours. I practiced every day. We only had 9 guys on the team, 7 guys on the team. We talked to kid. There was a kid from El Paso who had gone to Armstrong Atlantic as a walk-on, mind you, because his girlfriend was playing softball out there. And we talked him into coming back home to El Paso. We had to talk him into it and accepting a full scholarship. And that was our 8th guy or 9th guy on the team. But that's where the program was at that time. But yeah, it was a lot of fun just being around that. Again, I'm drawing a blank on the name, the point guard for the '66 national championship team, the Glory Road movie. I can't think of the point guard's name, but he died that year, and his funeral was at Fort Bliss. The place was packed.
Wow.
I'm talking Nolan Richardson, all kinds of people, and everybody from El Paso. Because when he finished playing, he went to work for the electricity department. He didn't go play pro ball or try and do anything. He got married and went to work for the electricity department, and he stayed there. That was his city. He wasn't leaving. And Fort Bliss, he did it at Fort Bliss in some auditorium, and the auditorium was packed. It was so crowded. It was unbelievable. So just being around at that time, that movie was coming out. All those guys from that '66 team made their way into El Paso, Big Daddy Latin, those guys, man, and you get to see them. Then you see the story on the movie, and some of those stories were true. So it was a lot of fun.
Did Nolan Richardson come around a lot? Did he come?
He was there a little bit. He had a golf tournament. He had a golf tournament there in El Paso. There was talk when Rab resigned that they were going to get Coach Richardson had just left Arkansas. Tim Floyd had just been let go either by the Bulls or the Hornets. So that the AD had told us that they were going to let Nolan, Tim Floyd, or Coach Haskins coach the team for a year, and then kind of see how things went. And I'm thinking to myself, man, what a great opportunity. You get to be around any one of those 3 guys. And then a week later, they hired Billy Gillespie. So I'm not going to say anything, but it was a little different working for Billy than it was working for Coach Driesell or
might have been with a Richardson or a Floyd.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Now Billy can coach. I mean, he can coach. Corey, you've had some guys play for him, so he does it a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you end up doing another 1-year tour.
Yep.
And now you go to your first head coaching job in college. You've done some AAU obviously early when you were getting started, but now your first trip to D2. So tell us a little bit about North Alabama.
And you know, going back to where we started with the other off the beaten path deal, everybody talks about relationships, and I'm sitting in my office in El Paso. We've got 5 or 6 wins. I knew that when they hired Billy Gillespie, the chances of us staying on staff, I mean, it's Billy's first head coaching job. He's going to hire his own guys. He's not going to keep all of us. So January, February rolls around. I'm not on the Hoop Dirt because Hoop Dirt didn't exist, but I'm looking to see NCAA news, what jobs might be open. And I see that Gary Elliott has announced his retirement at North Alabama at the end of the year. I'm thinking, North Alabama? I think I know the AD there. Joel Erdman was the AD. His nephew, Nate Erdman, had played for us at Washington State and Oklahoma. So I just pick up the phone and call Joel Erdman and say, hey, you guys looking for a basketball coach? I see you got an assistant coach that's been there for 10, 12 years. Are you just going to, Billy Gamble was the assistant, longtime assistant. And I said, is he just going to move up, or what's the deal? And he said, well, we're going to open it up. Billy's going to be a candidate. So I applied for the job and got hired. Probably I got hired on April 1st. I'm flying into New Orleans for the Final Four. And in the USA Today, there was a little blurb there that I had gotten hired at North Alabama. Had no idea about Division II, 0.
Really?
Yep. Didn't know anything about it. I had no clue about the level of play, the talent, how good the coaches were, how good the league was. The first time I took the rules test, I failed it. You know, it says, hey, you know, when a kid comes in on an official visit, you have a tryout. Well, that's false. You can have a tryout. Kid comes in on an unofficial visit, you buy him a meal. That's false. You can't do that. I hadn't even read that because in D1, it's an open book.
Right.
It's open book. And you can look up the deal. D2 is not. It wasn't open book. And so I'm going off my D1, and I failed it. And I needed to sign some players. We needed to sign some players for me. They had some very good players coming in there, but I felt like I needed to be out, and you had to wait 7 days to take the test again. So I missed going out. You know, one of those Ken Littlefield unsigned JUCO deals or Gerald Snyder showcase events. I missed that for a weekend, and but no, it was D2 is a good life, good players, good relationships with other coaches. You know, y'all had Helfer and Dip on there. You know, I got along with those guys. Helfer and I would try and beat each other's brains in, but during his shoot around, during my shoot around, I just go sit in his office. I let the assistants run the shoot around on game day, and I just go sit in Helfer's office and we just talk. Same thing with Lenny Acuff at Huntsville. Same thing with Danny Young at Montevallo. We just had a good relationship, which I think the D1 guys have those relationships, but they're not as open with them. Like, you know, you show up for a game, like Coach Driesell, if he would have caught me talking to an assistant coach from another team on the day of a game, I'd have been fired. I mean, and in D2, you travel with the women. So you got to sit there and watch the women's game. Half the time I'd sit up in the stands with the coach I'm getting ready to play, and we're sitting right next to each other watching the women's game, talking about stuff. Just didn't happen in Division I. That part of it I enjoyed, the relationships that you got. So yeah, I was lucky.
How can you have that relationship and then also compete? How does that balance work? That's what at the D1 level with the pressure and the result is the reason it doesn't happen. But how do you find that balance?
I don't. The money I think is what changes things. You know, there's not a whole lot of guys getting rich being a Division II coach. there's not as much pressure. When we didn't sign the kid from high school X and Montevallo signed him, our Twitter fan base didn't go ballistic that we weren't doing our job. They had no clue who we were signing. They didn't know who the guys were until they showed up. So at this level, I mean, everything is scrutinized: your schedule, your recruiting, your uniforms, the shoes you wear, what the coaches wear on the sideline. Everybody's scrutinizing everything. Heck, man, I mean, Dip shows up in a Jaguar suit and everybody loves it, right? If I could find a lion costume, I think I would have tried it out and beat him on that. But I never could. I couldn't. That Jaguar suit that Dip had is pretty impressive.
Head to toe, man. Yep.
Yeah. He wore it well.
So give us some. I know you don't want to. Probably don't feel comfortable bragging, but give us some of the runs you had at North Alabama. You guys had some. You made an Elite Eight, and what else went on there? Give us a little bit of.
The Elite Eight team, man, was a special team. I think we had played Winona, who won the national championship at Disney, and lost to them by like 4 or 6. Really should have beat them. Had a kid from Australia, Phil Collins, had a breakaway layup. I'm talking about breakaway. Nobody was cross half court but him, and he banged it off the backboard without hitting the rim. And we lost the game by 4 or 6. I think they spent a lot of time at Disney World during that trip, and probably my fault, because I had always told the guys, hey, whenever we go somewhere, we're going to experience. But that Elite Eight team was fun. I heard Dip talking about it in the podcast, that when I showed up for the press conference, I looked like I'd been on vacation. I took our guys to ESPN studios. We had played, I don't know what we were, 27-9. So we played 36 games. We had 125 practices. One more practice at the Mutual Mass, not going to make that big a deal. And our guys had been on a charter plane. Some of them was the first time they'd ever flown. It really wasn't, because we flew to Tampa, but a charter plane. They ain't never getting on one again. I don't think they ever have. And they were never going to be in Stores, Connecticut again. They go to ESPN. And how lucky were we? There was a girl that played soccer at North Alabama that was working at ESPN. So I just picked up the phone and called her. I said, hey, Woody, can we come do a tour? And sure enough, we had to take 2 16-passenger vans because our athletic director had canceled our charter bus because he didn't want to spend the extra money on the charter bus. So we took 2 16-passenger vans to ESPN and toured ESPN and had a great time. I mean, the guys got to see Scott Van Pelt, Mike Tirico, who's the dude that's always yelling at somebody in the morning?
Stephen A.
And the other guy. Yeah, so they got to hang out with them. It was great. They got to sit at Sports Center desk. My man Cord Wright, assistant coach, he's up there acting like he's doing Sports Center. So it was a lot of fun, man. And that year we beat Christian Brothers in the first round of the region. Had played them 3 times, twice in the regular season, lost, and might have lost to them all 3 times. I don't remember. But when we were in Tampa or Lakeland, we skipped a shoot around to go tour the Tampa Bay Bucks facility. And during that shoot around, Christian Brothers' best player turns his ankle. I mean, it's swollen up like this. He don't play against us. He averaged 26 points a game. We probably don't win. So I'm thinking to myself, hey, there's something to this missing practice late in the season. Mike Nee never get mad at me for that, but he got to go to the Elite Eight the next year. So it was good. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then 2014, we won the conference tournament. We went back-to-back NCAA 14-15 or 13-14. Those guys had a good run with those guys, man. And the good thing about that 2018, I think we had 7 or 8 seniors. All those guys graduated. The 14-15 or 13-14 team, same deal, man. Like Rashawn Claiborne was MVP of the GSC tournament. And maybe 5 years after he had finished playing overseas, he sends me a Snapchat picture of his diploma. He had gone back and gotten the one English class that he hadn't taken, did it online, and sent me a picture of his degree that had been sent in the mail. So those are things that there's a priority on winning, obviously, but I like it so much more. The guys who played for me that are JUCO coaches, high school coaches, making money in the finance world, hearing about those guys and what they're doing, as opposed to, hey, we won this trophy or we won this deal. So you'd have to look. Yeah, you probably can't find it because you can't find my record on the website. I think North Alabama has erased me from the website, but we won a lot of games, but the games are secondary to the relationships that I had with my players.
Awesome. And in a very tough league, the Gulf South, a tough league.
Yeah, Helfer and Young and Acuff and those guys are pretty good, and the old man at West Georgia was pretty good. Murph had some teams, man. My first year, Majestic Map and those dudes. I think they beat us 28 points in Flowers Hall. And Ed Murphy comes over there and he's like, Bobby, man, I just want you to know I wasn't running up the score on you. I said, Coach, don't you worry about it. When I get players good enough, I'm gonna kick your ass too. and that was the thing. Like Murph would show up in town, he'd call me, hey, we got shooting around at 7 o'clock. You want to come over to the hotel? And so I'd go over to his hotel the night before and we'd sit and we'd talk and have a good time with Cooney and Raper and those guys. Just a lot of fun. Final Four, all those GSC guys would show up at Hooters and we'd sell our tickets because, we'd make money off of it and we'd sell our tickets and go to Hooters and watch a game together. We're all sitting there watching the game. So a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Fun. So when you end up leaving there,
I got fired.
I'm
the only coach in the history of North Alabama to be fired.
Wow.
So 7 coaches in the history of the school. 5 of them are in the Hall of Fame. I take it back. 4 of them. Everybody but me, Bill Jones from Jacksonville State and won the national championship at Jacksonville State, and the current coach, or the 3 coaches that are not in the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
So a great history there.
So how did that, obviously me and you talked some during that time, so I know, but I'm more for the podcast.
Yeah.
So now your journey really gets off the beaten path if you didn't think it was before. So now how does that winding thing, and then we know the end of the story is good because you're sitting there with your Culture Houston shirt on, ready to rock.
Yeah. Your guy from Phoenix talked about culture, and that's why I wore this shirt, because but it's a word, but University of Houston lives it every day. It's just not something that coach throws up on the board. But yeah, journey changes. March 12th, 2018, get a text message at 8 o'clock in the morning from the AD saying, hey, meet me in HR today at 2 o'clock. And when I show up at 2 o'clock, he said, hey, I just wanted to let you know in person that we weren't renewing your contract. So things kind of change.
Their first year going Division I. You never were the head coach when North Alabama was Division I, correct?
Yeah. North Alabama decided to go Division I, made the announcement in like the middle of 2016, and decided the next year we're going to compete at Division II instead of going right away. And so we had a whole year of everybody talking about going Division I and all of that stuff. And, the schedule really, the Gulf South Conference wasn't real happy we were leaving. We were the lone wolf in the league. We'd play 2 games on the road. Everybody else just had the 1 game because it was uneven. I was taking off all the committees that I was on. It was a little bit difficult. And I decided to do things a little bit different than a lot of guys, probably not very smart. I could have loaded up with a bunch of D2 dudes, those guys, and won a bunch of games. I decided that last year we'd signed 3 really good freshmen, and I redshirted because I wanted them to have the experience of playing 4 years of Division I. And they could have graduated and still, maybe transferred and done something else. And in D2 during exhibition games, you can play everybody. We went to South Alabama at the beginning of that year, and we beat South Alabama with my freshman play and contributing. John Brown and Jimmy Ratliff and Peyton Stovall, those dudes helped us beat South Alabama in an exhibition game, but still. And so I guess we didn't win enough games. We had a winning record that year, but we didn't win enough games. I don't know. Nobody's ever told me why I got fired. But, anyhow, path changes quick, man. I got 4 kids. 2 of them had been born in Florence. We were deep in the community. We did Coaches versus Cancer. We had a gala. We were the only D2 school in the country that did a gala. There was a laboratory school on campus that one of the presidents wanted to close, and my wife did a great job of raising some money to keep that lab school open. Anytime there was a charity event, a fundraiser, a dunking booth, walk a mile in your shoes and high heels, I was doing it. Like Dip talked about, you're in that small community, and whatever you got to do to get butts in the seats, I was doing it. And so now all of a sudden, you are not the coach anymore. And so instead of walking down Main Street and everybody, hey, coach, how you doing? Hey, coach, how you doing? You're not relevant anymore, man. And it changes. So I had to make a decision what I wanted to do. My son was going into his senior year, had played with some really good players at Florence High School. And since he was in 3rd grade, Mark Sears is at Alabama, Kareem Thompson is Oral Roberts, Darius Thompson that's a receiver at Georgia State. Those were all guys on his team. And so if I go bouncing around like I had done the previous 15 years before they were born, what do they do? So I became an all-state insurance agent and did that and coached girls basketball, high school girls basketball. So you talk about taking a turn, man. It was a turn, but had a lot of fun. I got to see my son play all of his games his senior year, my second son, all of his games his junior year, because I didn't have any games. Well, I had games, but my second son, Will's senior year, I was actually coaching the girls at Florence High School. So I'd coach the girls and then go sit up in the stands and watch my son play. So you talk about coaching Ryan Miner, who's MVP of the World Series and the Big 8 Player of the Year, and then going to coaching some high school girls who can't make a layup, going full speed with nobody guarding them. It was a change, but it's the same. I listened to the podcast where you had the women's coaches on, and they asked what the difference is. Coaching's the same. You're just not drawing up a lob play for them to dunk it. I mean, you're drawing up plays for them to execute and catch it and shoot a 3. So, and then, all right, so that's 3 years. I try and get those 3 years out of the way because they were dark. I still have my Allstate Insurance Agency. I'm scrolling through Facebook at 3 o'clock in the morning because I can't sleep, and I see where the county is hiring. Come and join us. So I click on the link and I start scrolling. I see boys basketball coach, Tharptown High School. I got a good friend of mine down there. Those kids used to come to camp. I'm gonna pick up the phone and call and see. And I picked up the phone and I got the job. Tharptown High School. You can't find Tharptown on the map. Go ahead.
I'm trying right now.
It's right next to Russellville.
Okay.
Right next to Russellville. Yeah. Great people down there. Small school. And I coached them in the summer. We did some play dates, but never really got a chance to coach them in the season because I'd taken the job. I don't have a teaching certificate. So it was a year ago this week that I had taken the job. I show up for teacher in service and I still don't know what I'm teaching because they hadn't figured it out. Then all of a sudden I'm getting career prep and psychology. And so I'm without a textbook, mind you. And so I'm scrambling to put together some lesson plans for school to start the next week. And, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking all I'm going to be here for is to coach basketball. But really, I was there to teach, and basketball was secondary. But yeah, I did that for a month, August, well, 2 months. And I'm in the middle of teaching career prep one Monday morning. And I look down at my watch and Kelvin Sampson's name comes up. He's calling me. And so I said, all right, when I get a break, I'll call coach. You know, he's getting ready to start the season. Practice starts next week. We're just going to shoot the breeze and see what's going on. And so I hit whatever, pause or whatever you do on there. And 15 minutes later, he calls again. I was like, oh man, something must have happened. You know, somebody's got COVID, somebody got in a car accident, somebody's sick. You know, coach wouldn't just call me like that. And so I sent him a text. I said, can't talk right now, but I can text. And normally coach will text rather than talk. And he didn't respond. I was like, oh man, something really must be bad. So about 30 minutes later, he calls again. I turn around to my students and said, hey, you can do whatever you want to. I got to take this call. And so I walk out in the hall and he offers me the operations job and tells me, he's like, he said, I know you got to talk to Anna, see what the deal is, but I need to know something this afternoon. We got to get this thing done as quickly as possible if you're going to do it, because they'd already started practice. Right. And so I went and talked to him. I went to lunch, didn't call my wife. I walk out of the cafeteria and I call my wife and I say, hey, Coach Sampson offered me a job at Houston. And she said, are you leaving tonight or tomorrow?
Wow.
And I said, well, I got to talk to the principal first and, you know, work all this stuff out. She goes, you're taking the job. I said, yeah, but I want to work through everything. I went and talked to the principal. I had no idea. Like, well, he said, well, we got to think about letting you out of your contract. I'm like, man, this is America. I can quit if I want to, right? And so I told him, I said, you know, he was like, you know, we can't give you any more money, but maybe next semester we can lower your class load. And I said, yeah, all that sounds good. I said, man, but I looked at the University of Houston's schedule next year, and during Thanksgiving, they're playing in the Maui Classic. If you can somehow get me a game in Gulf Shores during Thanksgiving, I might consider it.
No.
But unless you can come up with that, man, I think I'm taking this job. So I walk out of that meeting and my wife calls me and says, hey, there's a direct flight from Huntsville, Alabama tonight. You can be there tonight at 10 o'clock. She was all for it. She was tired of watching me not doing what I enjoyed doing. And
how about that? Good for her. She was on it.
And if you remember right, you got she didn't want you to leave Oklahoma.
Right.
She wanted to take coach then. So twofold. She was wanting to take care of you and
and that, you know, that's the other thing. You know, the relationships in this business. You know, my relationship with Coach Sampson has always been good. But if I'm a young coach and about to get married, be sure that partner knows what you're getting into. My wife thought she was marrying a pre-med major. She didn't realize I had switched to sociology. She didn't know it. My first gig at North Alabama, well, I'm getting ready to walk out the door to go to my first game. And she looks at me and goes, you sure you know what you're doing? You know, she's not a basketball person, but she does understand relationships and that kind of stuff. But you got to be sure you got the right person, man, because the bouncing around, like right now I'm living in an apartment in Midtown Houston. She's got my kids in Florence, Alabama. You know, I've got two kids are going to be at Auburn, one kid that's playing at Christian Brothers, and my daughter's a junior. But she's managing a household in Florence, Alabama, so that I can do what she knows I'm passionate about. So
that's awesome, man. That's
awesome.
It
is. It is 26 years. 26 years. So
Big time. All right. So give us a little bit about Houston. Obviously, you're 1 year there. Been a pretty good run.
Yeah. I got here October 1st. They were about 3-4 days into practice. I walked into the first practice, man, and high intensity, what I'd been used to at Oklahoma and Washington State. We were a jump shot or two away from getting to the Final Four this year. Couldn't make one against Villanova. We kind of Villanova is they jump stop, pivot, and we worked on it for 2 days or whatever we could. But seeing it live is a totally different deal. They were very, very disciplined in what they do. And we guarded them, man. I mean, I think they shot 26% from the field.
It was a great game.
Yeah, we couldn't make a jump shot. But it was a great run, man. It's so, again, culture. About a week into it, coach says, hey, we need to have a early morning practice tomorrow. We're going to come in at 6:30. We need to go over all our out of bounds plays, all our half court stuff. And we'll go 5-on-0 just so we can put it all in so that when we practice, I don't have to stop and walk through and we can just go full speed and everything, right? So 6:30 in the morning. So I get up early, come down to the office, get on the treadmill, get a little workout in. And I'm thinking, I'm thinking about my guys at the Deuce, man, when we had a 6:30 practice. They were rolling in there at 6:29 and tying their shoes. So I figured I'm going to go down to the locker room at 6 o'clock and kind of rah, get the guys going. I get off the treadmill, go to the locker room. Nobody's in there. I'm like, oh, crap. These dudes ain't here yet.
Ready to go wake up.
Now, they were already on the practice court in a full sweat 30 minutes before practice was starting. They got there. They get there early. They get there early and get their work done. They're getting their individual work done before practice starts. And so it's so refreshing. It's been so good to be around players that want to get better. They give you a call and say, hey, coach, can you be sure one of the managers comes to rebound for me? Is anybody in the gym right now? I need to get on the gun. It's good to be around. And there's no secret why coach has been as successful as he's been. I mean, the run that the Final Four, Sweet 16, Elite 8, this thing he's got this thing rolling. So it's been a lot of fun. It's different. It's a totally different world now. I'm not hopping on a bus with the women and driving 8 hours to Arkadelphia, Arkansas to play Henderson State, Washita Baptist on a Thursday, Saturday. We're hopping in a charter plane. Our guys think a long bus ride is a 20-minute ride to Hobby Airport.
The airport.
That's awesome.
We hop on a bus, we hop on a plane, we hop on a bus, we go to a hotel. As soon as the game's over, we're on a plane coming home. Tommy Brown was talking about that at Illinois, where they would play a game at Maryland and be back that night before midnight. It's pretty similar to that, that we spend one night on the road and we're traveling back. It's not like spending one night on the road and driving all night to get home. So it's a different world.
Bobby, I do have to ask about this fancy title, this Director of Operations and Basketball Strategy. What's this basketball strategy piece? How does that fit in?
Well, if you look on our website, there's 2 or 3 Director of Basketball Operations. So I think they had to put something on there to distinguish us. I'm not sure what the basketball strategies are other than scheduling.
Hey, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is, and it's difficult. It's difficult when you get to this level, and probably 8 years ago when Coach got here, everybody wanted to play Houston. Now nobody wants to play Houston, and so it's tough, and just balancing it all out. We play in the American, so we've got to play some Power Fives. We've got Alabama, Oregon, and St. Mary's, and Virginia. We got to be sure we've got some of those games so that our net score is where it needs to be. but getting those people to play is hard. Nobody wants to come to Houston and play, but yeah, basically operations, scheduling, travel, hotels, practice times, and anything that kind of falls, trying to take stuff off of coaches' plate, assistant coaches' plates, stuff that as a Division II head coach, you do anyway. Because I mean, the year we went to the Elite Eight, it was me and Cord Wright. We didn't have a GA, we didn't have a manager. We took Cord's wife, Kelly, girlfriend at the time, came with us to the regional so that we could have somebody to wash our uniforms. Yeah. Now we show up for workouts, and I kind of laugh. There's 13 guys out there running sprints, and there's 26 people clapping and cheering them on. You know, we got managers, we got trainers, we got
wipe up a beat of
operations,
sweat.
video guys. So, you know, taking care of them, making sure they can play at a high level.
And they sure do.
And they do. And coach demands it. And you know, we talk about playing to our culture, living our culture, and that's what we do. I mean, the day before the day of the Villanova game in San Antonio, myself, our player development guy, our strength coach, and our assistant strength coach had on the wrong shoes for practice. So we ran a suicide because of it. Yeah.
Holding everybody accountable.
Yeah. And the day before that, Coach Sampson was shooting around. He's a good shooter. You don't want to play him in horse. He shot an air ball, so he had to do it down and back. And the guys all stopped and clapped for him while he did it down and back. So, you know, there's certain things that there's a standard set, and we live to that standard. You know, sometimes the scoreboard might not be in our favor, but we're always going to play to our standard. And usually when we play to our standard, we do pretty good.
I love it. I love it. Well, now let's go to our favorite part of the show and our big standard that we hold here on Off the Beaten Path, the lightning round. The lightning round. We think it's the best part of the show. Whether anybody else does or not, we don't know. But
I get a little shot clock.
Yeah. We'll have the shot clock rolling. This time we have the guys in Fannin County running it. So you'll probably get a friendly shot clock if you're the home team.
They're not certified.
Not certified, and might have a Rome guy running the other one. So we're in trouble. But here we go. We'll start it off. We didn't hit on this, so I'm going to use it in the lightning round. Your brother is a junior college, or was a junior college head coach for a long time. How in the world did that happen? You know,
he spent more time coaching AAU. He had Kerry Kittles.
Wow.
You know, yeah. He had some dudes, and his junior or senior year in high school, maybe his senior in high school, he started coaching, and then all through he went to school at Southwestern Louisiana, and all through that time he coached every summer. So he was in that deal for a long time. And then as soon as he graduated, he went to work at Lee. Bill Foy maybe was the coach, and he was assistant there for 1 or 2 years. And then Bill took the job at Paris, and Roy got hired at Lee, 27, 28 years. He's 2 years younger than me, and he's retired. Yeah, living a good life. Living a good life. So the JUCO world, man, maybe I missed the boat, bouncing around in D1 instead of going to one JUCO and sticking with it.
You know, 1 year in JUCO is like dog years. It's really 3 years in coaching. So if he did 28, do the math. I
don't know. He's got a lot better hair than I do, man. I don't know.
All right. So my next one, the next two will be a little more long, or next three. I'm sorry, that one was kind of just a preamp there. But
yeah.
Best food place in Houston. Where do you?
Man, there's a bunch of them. You're going to do breakfast. You go to the Breakfast Club, which is just right here in Midtown. Or you can go to Brothers Tacos and get some breakfast tacos. Both places will close about 2:00, so they're a breakfast, brunch, lunch guy. Turkey Leg Hut is a nice. They got stuffed turkey legs. The burger joint, if you're going to get a burger, or the Goat Ranch. What else we need? Some barbecue. Pit Room, Pinkertons, and Truth. Those are spots. Truth open Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 2, or 11 until sold out. So if you're not there at 10:30, you're probably not getting any brisket.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, the Final Four is in Houston this coming year, so we need to take those notes good, Cyril. We may go from Truth. We may do a show from Truth with Bobby, and we'll have to arrive.
I learned something from Schlesinger at New Orleans. He sent out an email to a bunch of coaches, or a text message, and he had a list of restaurants and bars, sports bars, places to go. And so that he wasn't getting a whole bunch of phone calls. Hey man, I want to get a good muffalata sandwich. Where do I go? He had them all listed, man. And so I might put that together for Houston. If you're in downtown, midtown, out by NRG, where you need to go.
Because hopefully you're going to be busy.
Yeah. And hopefully we're playing. So
exactly.
Exactly. All right. Then next one that I always ask this one: the best and worst place you've played. You have some good moving around. So the worst gym, a lot of people don't realize when you're in that D2 world, and even some of those smaller Division Ones, some of the bad gyms that are out there.
Stillman College was probably pretty rough. Leon Douglas was the coach. And it was one of those gyms where the locker room was below, and it felt like the floor was going to fall in on you. That was bad. Tuskegee was bad. Division I, Campbell. When I was at Georgia State, the visitors' locker room, the bleachers came across the visitors' locker room. So when you went to the one urinal, you had to lean because you couldn't stand up straight because the roof came down. That was a bad one. Ouachita Baptist, the locker room was downstairs, and there was a pool. And my very first road game, this is a great story here. I know I'm on the clock. My very first road game, pregame talk, Jim Valvano talking about, hey, gonna this and this, man. I'm fired up. I'm getting my guys going. All of a sudden the door opens, and this guy walks in a weenie bikini with a towel around his neck, and he walks right through the locker room. And I'm looking at him like, what in the world? And he goes to this back door and walks in. And all my guys are kind of laughing, and I'm looking at Cord Wright like, what the heck, man? What did we get into? And so then I get right back into it, and I'm trying to get the guys fired up. And then all of a sudden the door opens, and the guy comes walking right back across the locker room and goes in the shower. It was the swim team's locker room, and he was on the swim team. He was just coming in, getting his workout in. I was like, man, let's go play. So that was a rough one, but a lot of fun. I'd say Stillman and Campbell, those were rough. West Alabama is a bad gym. I mean, it's not, there's not, the roof's not falling in or anything like that. It's just a bad gym. So yeah, those are tough deals.
On the other end, what's the nicest?
Man, we've got a great facility. Fertitta is 5 years old, and it's just like a miniature NBA place. The other places that were Arizona was Pauley Pavilion is not. I mean, it's got that history. It's got wooden bleachers. Allen Fieldhouse, same kind of deal. But as far as like just nice, like Oregon's old place it was like an old Boston Garden. This year we get to go to Oregon and play in the Phil Knight deal, so I get to see what that place is like. But yeah, those are good spots. The Deuce though, man, just traveling into those different places, nobody really understands. Henderson State, there's a bridge across the street going to Ouachita. They're literally right across the street from each other. The night we were playing Henderson State, our bus caught on fire on the way to the game. Doesn't really happen very often, I wouldn't think, but yeah, it happened to us. Luckily, they got another bus there to take us home that night. But those are fun trips, man.
Those are the best. All right, so the last one for me is, what's the most the one time where maybe you thought you have arrived, whether it was being a big time assistant or your own head coach or going back to Houston and you got humbled pretty quick?
The one that comes to mind for me is I'm going to my first home game right after my wife asked me, "Hey, do you know what you're doing?" Right? And I hop in my car, and I literally live 2 blocks from the gym, so I really didn't need to drive. But I'm thinking I'm going to drive over, so I drive. I make a right, left, and I'm getting ready to pull in the parking lot, and there's a security guard there at the parking lot. I roll down my window and, "Hey, man, how you doing? Good to see you." Blah blah blah. We're talking. And I was like, "Okay." He goes, "Do you have a pass?" I said, "No, I don't have a pass." He goes, are you a referee?" I said, "Hell no, I'm not a referee." He goes, "Well, it's just game officials that can park back here." It's like, okay. So I backed up, parked at home, and I walked. And when I walked by him, I said, "Hey, man, I really appreciate you doing your job." And I handed him my business card. He said, "Oh, coach, you should have said something." I said, No, I don't have a pass. I don't have a pass to park here. You're doing your job." He didn't know who I was. He's a security guard from campus, and it's a pretty small campus, but he didn't know who I was. So humbled pretty quick. From that point on, I always walked to the games. And so it was a good tradition. So, yeah.
I love it. All right, Thurl, you take over. You're hitting cleanup here.
All right. Hey, advice. You've been through the paths and the ringers. Young coach, advice. What do they need to know? What do they need to do? How do they need to be in order to make it in the basketball business? Not necessarily just D1.
I mean, it's just going to kind of sound a little bit cliche, but you got to work hard. You got to show up every day. You got to be dependable. And then you have to build genuine relationships with people, not just trying to get to know someone because they can help you get a job. Because, the day we got fired at El Paso, or the day Raveling resigned, there was a whole bunch of people calling me. They weren't calling to check on me to see if I was going to keep my job. They were calling to find out who was going to get the job and how they could get a job. When I got fired at North Alabama, there was very few friends who stayed in touch with me over those 3.5 years that I was not in a very good place. And one of them was Killen Sampson. And my relationship with Coach Sampson has always been because I just enjoyed my relationship with Coach Sampson. It was never the day I got fired, I didn't call Coach and say, "Hey, Coach, I need a job." I just called him and bounced stuff off of him. Like, what do I need to do? So build relationships with people, not just because they've got a player who can help you, or they've got a job that can help you, or they got something, that would be my thing. And all this technology stuff is great, and I wish I was better at it. But man, go work some basketball camps and learn how to run a drill. Learn how to organize your guys and get people going where they need to go to, because it's one thing for your head coach to organize practice and tell you what you're going to be doing, but it's another thing for you to have to organize that thing and do it, And so I always told my assistant coaches, "Hey man, act like you're the head coach and do it like you would do it. And if it's way wrong from what I would do, I'll correct you or pull you into the office and say, hey, let's do it this way." But for the most part, man, figure out how you're going to run your program and try and do it, because like Stan Jones was talking about on the deal, when they move you over 18 inches in that spot and you're not making suggestions, you're making decisions, it's a whole different world. You've got a whole lot of stuff going on that you never had to deal with as an assistant coach.
Right.
And the other thing is, no job is too small or too big for you, right? Monty Williams is a head coach of Phoenix Suns and a really good coach and wins a lot of games. And he showed up and he's got 1 million dudes, ops guys, assistants, trainers, strength coaches, all this stuff. He grabbed a mop and said, "Hey, coach, can you give me a wet towel so I can wet mop the floor?" And he did it. So find where you can be useful to your program and jump in there and get it done. Don't just say, hey, that needs to be done and not do it. So
right, be willing to do all that, work hard, relationships, and nothing's too big, nothing's too small. You mentioned you talked early on about working camps, young in life. What are the top 2-3 camps that you worked, or as an ops guy or as a head coach that you ran?
I took a lot of pride in my camps at North Alabama. My kids all grew up coming through it. So it's a lot of fun. Sometimes we're sitting around grilling some burgers or something, and their friends are over, and we tell stories about stupid stuff I did at camp or whatever. We'd have Wacky Wednesday and wear some crazy stuff. Heck, one year the lights went out in the gym, and we had camp for a day in the dark. Another time it rained, and they probably still hadn't fixed the roof at North Alabama, but there was water just coming in. So I had a raincoat on, standing in the middle of the gym, so the water was dripping on me instead of on the kids. But I was fortunate enough to go to Don Myers camp at Lipscomb. Loved it. It was great. You learned a lot. You competed a lot. You learned basketball. Dixie basketball camp talked about. I worked Wimps Anderson's camp, and that I did that in the summers. Bounced from one camp to the next. Way back when there was the BC camp in Milledgeville, Georgia, and so I spent 2 weeks at Bobby Knight's camp in Indiana as a player, then 14 days or so in Lipscomb and then drove over to Milledgeville. So go to as a young coach, go to camps,
right,
and learn how different people do it. Sometimes those late nights that you're sitting up doing stuff you shouldn't be doing, you are building some relationships. You're moving those salt and pepper shakers around, or the drawing on a napkin, but you're getting to know some people that, Bob Marlin was working at Dixie basketball camp. He's a head coach at Louisiana-Lafayette. Kermit Davis, those guys were all, you're coming up the ranks together, and you never know, who, what, when, where. Buzz Williams was a manager at Oklahoma City University when I was a restricted earnings coach at Oklahoma, and that's the first time I met Buzz. So you never know when you're going to run into somebody and where they're going to end up being, and you never know when you're running a camp what campers are going to be. I always took a lot of pride in learning those kids' names.
Right.
Now it's caught up to me because these kids are now 22 years old, right? And they'll walk up and say, "Hey, coach, I bet you don't remember me. I went to your camp." Well, yeah, you were 5, and now you're 20. You look a whole lot different, man. Give me a little help, But those kids are all going on to being doctors and lawyers and doing whatever, man. And that they might be able to help you one day because you took the time to teach them how to get in a defensive stance or take a charge or dive on the floor for a loose ball. So
or ask their name and remember it. Yeah. So, so Bobby, you mentioned the salt and pepper shakers and the napkins. That leads us to our kind of final quick one here is, I know it's one of your favorites, but books. Do you have some book recommendations or podcasts? We love podcasts. We love our own. We love others. What do you listen to? What do you read?
Well, I started I listen to a lot of podcasts now. Yours, obviously. Harry Canova, a high school coach in Mobile's got a coaching A to Z. It's a really short one. It's maybe 20 minutes, but he gets high school coaches, college coaches, and talks about different stuff in basketball. So I like his podcast. Ed Milet has got he's a mega dude. He's got weekly podcasts. I like books. Man, anything that autobiographical, John Thompson's I Came with Shadows, one of the recent ones I read, John Gordon, Damon West. Read all I didn't read anything until I got out of college. I should have been reading. I think the only book I read was Catcher in the Rye and Old Man in the Sea. And the rest of them, I just got the Cliff Notes too, so I could pass the test. But now, I like reading a lot of books, or it doesn't count if you listen to them. Like John Suli is a really good book about college basketball, kid from Africa. I listened to it. I didn't read it. It's really cool. North Carolina Central is the setting. So that was a good one, man. So, Coach Sampson's got a book when he was at Oklahoma. You could read about that. There's a whole bunch. Anything, I try and grab on anything that can kind of help me learn something from somebody. George Raveling sends out a daily coach email that's got some great stuff in it. Atomic Habits. I can kind of go on and on and on. It's kind of like food places, man. We'll
have to put them all in the notes because books, podcasts, places to eat. Keep learning, keep listening. And you said you listened to this podcast based on the references you made as we talked through this. You really have been binge watching the OBP off the beaten path action. We love this. Yes.
Yeah. So tell me, you guys do this randomly or weekly or what? How are you working it out?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
The plan was bi-weekly.
Okay. Yeah.
And it kind of became randomly more. As
life happens. I was real happy you guys said, hey, come on in here on a Saturday morning, because it got my butt out of bed and get moving. During the off season, sometimes it's a little rough for me trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my day. So this has been good. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, Bobby, let's take it to the end here. Is there anybody or anything you want to add before we close it out? Anything you want to say or anybody you want to thank or any of that stuff?
Oh man, I heard one of the guys, and you guys gave him a hard time that he had his Emmy speech prepared. I don't have mine prepared, but obviously we talked about my wife and my family. They've been so supportive, helping me be able to do what I'm doing. Living here in Houston by myself, and them doing what they're doing, and periodically come and visit. They came to a few games. So my wife and my kids obviously want to thank Coach Sampson, all those guys, my high school coach, college coaches, everybody I've worked for, the assistant coaches I've been around, man. I was listening to a podcast this morning talking about your days that you can say 1 to 10, right? And you can rank them, 1 being your worst, 10 being your best. And you can always remember those. But the only way for you to have your 10s is to go through the 1s, right? And there was no way that I was going to be at the University of Houston if I don't get fired at North Alabama, right? And you think it's the worst day of your life when something bad happens, you get fired, you don't get that job or whatever. But those days, those losses help you get ready or prepare you for the wins. You run an out of bounds play, or you don't guard an out of bounds play the right way, and the other team hits a game winning shot, right? Well, if you don't go through that, you don't prepare for it for the next game and get ready for it. If everything's just rolling good, you don't ever learn. So you got to have those bad days, man. So I thank all those people that have put obstacles in my way, who have counted me out or not thought I was good enough, because you've helped me become better. And all those guys I competed with in the Gulf South, man, I loved it every day. So.
That's great advice. That's a great place to wrap things up. Here's a win for you, by the way. I'm just looking at the clock. I think this will be the longest episode ever on Off the Beaten Path. So congrats on that one.
There's nobody that's been as many states as I had. And when I got hired at North Alabama, one of the dudes on the Grady Lyles on the search committee, he asked the AD, he said, "Why do you want to hire this guy? It looks like he can't keep a job." Because I had been to so many places. So I appreciate it, man.
Well, we appreciate you. I think it's been a good journey. Your journey's been unbelievable. Showed a lot of tenacity, obviously, from yourself and your family. But also we enjoyed the states, the tours, the food, and the podcast, and the books. And I've taken some notes over here. I've enjoyed it. But when I think of Bobby Champagne, I think I met with him when I interviewed for Northwest Shoals Community College, and went by and hollered at him at North Alabama. And he talked to me. I remember that many, many years ago, been about 15, 14 years ago, and was great to me then, great to me now. And appreciate your friendship. Appreciate you coming on.
Help me out. What years did you play at Clayton?
It'd have been 95 to 99.
Okay. Because we went to Clayton one year. Gibbons came to North Alabama with a 7-footer and kicked us. And then the next year we went to Clayton and won. And that dressing room at Clayton State had to be one of the worst. The classroom down the hall. You had to
and
go
people
to
in
the
bathing
bathroom
suits
with the
walking through
fans.
that.
Yeah. That was
I was
pretty good.
there from 99 to 10. Is that right? 99 to 07. There you go. 99.
Okay, so yeah, you would have been an assistant because it was like 2006 or 7 that we went in there. Yeah.
Yes.
That was a bad locker room. The gym was nice, but bad locker room.
Correct. Real bad. But we appreciate you coming on, and this is a show for those who want to coach, those who used to coach, those who follow coaches, those who hire and fire coaches, and we really appreciate everybody out there listening.
Thanks, Bobby.
Go Cougs.